Sooner fans, Longhorn Nation, welcome to episode 142 of the Bevo Podcast, the only podcast exclusively dedicated to covering the greatest rivalry in college football, the University of Oklahoma and the University of Texas. I'm here with my man, Kevin Miller. I am John Whitson. Kevin, in a long line this year of amazing games, the University of Texas, coming off a demonstrative showing of domination against the University of Oklahoma, hosts to date its biggest SEC matchup, inviting the Bulldogs from Georgia into DKR for a Titanic clutch. Is it possible you are more fired up than you were last week?
I don't think so. I'm fired up, but
no,
nothing
no.
tops.
Correct answer is no.
Nothing tops the rivalry shootout. But I'm really excited about this matchup. It'll be a huge challenge, but I'm looking forward to it.
Here's the deal. So not everybody's a fan of conference realignment and everything that's gone down. I think it's safe to say that Oklahoma and Texas are fans of realignment because we ended up in a really good spot. But there's other schools out there might or might not like it, i.e. Florida State, Miami, Clemson, obviously some of the ones that got left out of the Pac-12 reshuffle, all of that kind of stuff. However, the upside of that has been the matchups that it's created. Okay? For example, Texas-Georgia, a conference game in October with not just resume building implications, but real conference consequences, right? If Georgia loses to Texas, which they are 2.5 point dog, first time they're a dog at all of any kind since 2021 against Clemson. Okay. If they lose to Texas, that drops them 2 losses in the SEC. They're on the outside looking in of making the SEC championship game, which for most SEC prognosticators was not on the bingo card, right? Georgia not making the SEC championship game. But really, it's becoming a real possibility if they lose to Texas. Also, other games that wouldn't have happened outside of the SEC. Oregon, Ohio State. That was a hell of a game last week.
Outstanding matchup.
And again, it matters. Ohio State taking a loss in conference. Ohio State actually having to play different teams. Penn State, Michigan, Nebraska, Michigan State. They cannot beat Ohio State. I say Michigan has beaten Ohio State. But outside of Michigan, there's just no matchups there. To add other teams, add different defenses, different styles, it's been a lot of fun. Georgia-Bama obviously was just a huge game. That would have happened maybe or maybe not with realignment because the SEC was very loath to schedule Georgia and Bama to have to play each other in the regular season.
Yeah, they really played each other. It makes no sense. I don't understand why that was.
I think they didn't want to tarnish their records. I think they wanted to save that for what they thought was an SEC championship game.
It's dumb. It's a great matchup. I want to see it as many times as possible.
You look at Tennessee, Oklahoma. In week 4, it's hard to remember this far back as an Oklahoma fan because so much has transpired. But in week 4, you had College game day in Norman for Tennessee and undefeated Oklahoma at the time. It was a huge game. And then, you got Georgia, Clemson, Texas, Michigan. The matchups this year have been fantastic. This is simply another game in the long line of games we've seen this year. What makes this one, though, Kevin, unique to those other games?
Well, I feel like just the amount of talent on both teams, and Georgia has been really the class of college football over the last 3 years. I know they didn't make the playoff last year, but I think it's possible they may have been the best team in the country last year. And, they fall against Alabama in the SEC championship game and end up being left out altogether, which I really still can't believe that happened. I mean, it's just pretty wild that happened. So when you have that team, back-to-back national championships, undefeated regular season last year, and then you have Texas, who was trying to ascend to that level, right? We're trying to be a national championship type program, a very consistent program in the Southeastern Conference. So when you get those two teams matched up, it makes for a very intriguing matchup. A lot of talent on the field and great coaches as well.
Texas is the last undefeated SEC team. Every other SEC, the other 15 SEC teams have at least one loss. Georgia has played the likes of Bama, Auburn, Kentucky, and Clemson, who's showing a resurgence. We had buried Dabo Swinney after week 1, and they're now in the top 10, squarely in the top 10. My question for you is, can the case still be made that Texas hasn't played anybody? And my second question is, when will a team ever play a Michigan and an Oklahoma team by week 7 and be accused of not playing anybody?
Yeah, that's pretty bizarre, right? Two blue bloods, and not just historic blue bloods. I'm talking blue bloods that have very recent success, right? The defending national champions in Michigan, Oklahoma. You guys have been really good, really throughout your history, but especially over the last few years. So, yeah, it's very rare to say something like that. You know, the Michigan game was tough. We didn't know what they were when we played them. All we knew was they're the defending national champs, and they have a lot of guys coming back, especially on defense. So I feel like we manhandled them, including their defense. Oklahoma kind of looked the same as Michigan, right? We knew they had a good defense, and offense was really struggling, right? And manhandled the Sooners as well. So yeah, not as battle tested as they are. That's for sure. I mean, they played some really good teams. Clemson has become great. That offense has finally got unlocked. I mean, Alabama, they're kind of a weird team, but they were firing on all cylinders offensively in that game against Georgia. Auburn, we know, was always going to be a tough out, even though they did get them at home.
Yeah.
Mississippi State, I mean, obviously that's a common opponent, and we all know what they're about, right? They could be a tough team to scheme against just because Levy can draw up some funky formations and motions and things like that. So, I mean, I would say that they are the more battle-tested team, but, I mean, I still feel confident about Texas being able to, hang with this Georgia team.
This is the first team that either Oklahoma or Texas have played with a common opponent. Mississippi State put 31 on Georgia in Athens. Y'all didn't, I mean, they might have kept it close and they might have harassed you a little bit, but what, 13 points? Is that all they had?
Yes, 35-13, which that's the most points we've allowed all season.
Yeah, so do you take anything away from that? Is this the nature of a long season, or did Mississippi State figure something out against Georgia? Like, what does that? Does that mean anything?
Not a ton to me. I mean, Michael Van Buren, their quarterback, the Texas game was his first start. He actually did some nice things, but we got after him really well with our edge guys, Colin Simmons and Ethan Burke. We really got after him. He has a couple games more experience, so he looked more comfortable out there, especially in the second half against Georgia. So I don't know if Georgia has the dynamic edge talent that we have right now, the ability to really get after the quarterback from the edge position. And I will say that game was 31-10, or 30. It might have even been 31-3 at one point before Mississippi State kind of went on a late run in the second half.
Well, that seems to be the theme of SEC teams, though, is to make excuses. Like, they talk about how bad they're beating a team some point through the game. Yeah. And then when the game's over, then they're like, well, I mean, we were up. Like, okay, but you didn't finish up. I always find that to be – Tennessee did the same thing. We were up. Yeah, and then you didn't score a touchdown the entire second half. So it just the SEC is really good at kind of creating a narrative to describe their games. I guess we're going to have to get used to that.
We got to jump on board.
Yeah, for Oklahoma, I mean, we were up 3-0 at the end of the first quarter against Texas. we owned time of possession through 15 minutes. I mean,
defense was great in the first quarter. Defense, yeah.
Yeah, still, yeah. I mean, I guess we can play this game. Okay, listen. Carson Beck, very, if you ask somebody that doesn't follow Georgia, that would be me. I think you follow Georgia a little closer than I do. I would say very much a Quinn Ewers, right? Like he's gonna do some really good things and some things that aren't ideal, but less of those as his career progresses. But he's going to kind of manage the game for you. He's also not going to I don't think he's going to go put it on his shoulders and try to win it. You tell me, in the back half of that Alabama game, maybe a little bit of that, but
I mean, he let it rip in that game, and he looked good doing it. You just have to ask, though, is it because, hey, we're down, we're getting blown out, so just throw it up, who cares what happens? And he hit on those, or I don't know. He's a really talented guy. So we talked about this. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to give you some stats here to let you kind of compare and contrast to Texas. Through the same number of games, through 6 games, he's got 1,818 yards, 67.9% completion percentage, 15 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 6 sacks. We know Quinn was out for 2 whole games. Is that right?
Yeah, 2.5 games. Really,
2.
Yeah.
So
I guess 2.75 games. He left in the.
I combined their stats, right, to give a Texas quarterback versus a Georgia quarterback. They combined for 1,791 yards, Arch and Quinn. So, roughly 30 yards less than Carson Beck. They have a better completion percentage at 70.5%. 3 more touchdowns, same number of interceptions. And the number that surprised me is the same number of sacks. I would have thought, just knowing how good Texas's offensive line is, that they might be a little more dominant. But then again, Georgia probably has a pretty good offensive line too. They are Georgia, so
they do. They have a very experienced, very experienced offensive line too. Talented and experienced.
In terms of a quarterback matchup, though, I don't know that you could put the check mark in one column or the other for who's going to be the better quarterback on Saturday, just based on past performance this year.
No, I completely agree with that. The thing about it, though, if you're comparing Carson Beck's numbers to the Texas quarterback numbers, is that Georgia has been in tight games. They've been throwing the ball in the fourth quarter, whereas with Texas, I mean, we're outscoring our opponents 259-38 so far. So, we just haven't thrown the ball a lot in the fourth quarter of really any of our games. So that would have a lot to do with it. So this matchup, I like Carson Beck. I like his talent. I like the way he throws the football. But like you said, you kind of compared him to Quinn. Sometimes he can make head scratching decisions in certain moments, throw the ball in the traffic, in the coverage. I don't know if that's sometimes he doesn't read it well, or is that just a crazy belief in his arm talent? Or is it like with Quinn Ewers, his mechanics can just get off? I told you about Daniel Jeremiah with the NFL Network. He's their big draft guy, and his evaluation of Quinn Ewers during the summer was that sometimes like he sees it, but sometimes his feet don't mirror his eyes. So he might turn his head and see it, but his feet won't turn to match where his eyes are looking before he lets it fire. So he's throwing off platform and off balance. So we saw that on Saturday. Ball goes 4 yards over Matthew Golden's head, and Billy Bowman ends up intercepting it. Same on that second drive, he just missed it because sometimes his feet don't mirror his eyes. So maybe you see some of that with Beck.
Texas is absolutely dominating teams this year, which is not a typical Texas team that we're used to seeing over the last 15 years. I made that point when I was on Texas Sports Unfiltered before the OU game, is yes, you haven't played anybody, but the people that you have played and you were supposed to beat, you beat the crap out of them. So that's one thought going into this game, which is I think you kind of want to get tested a little bit, just to kind of see what you really have, right? And I think in this case, okay, so when you think about Georgia, again, perception of Georgia, even over the last 3 years, is dominant defense. We can talk a little bit about that. because I think it's taken a hit over the last year, or at least, within the last season. And number two is not the skill players on the outside that other elite teams, a la Ohio State, Texas, even Alabama would have. Is that still the case this year with their offensive skill talent? And then on the defensive side of the ball, are they still big bad Georgia defensively, or are they having to kind of play a little more complementary football because they are not quite where they're used to be?
Yeah, like you said, you think of Georgia, you always think of physical running game, having 3 really good running backs on the team at the same time. And it's been like that through the entire Kirby Smart era. They have had loads of talented running backs come through there, and they just come in, they're there for 3 or 4 years, and then they're off to the NFL.
Yeah, just a real side note. Think about that 2017, 2018 Rose Bowl. Sony Michel, Nick Chubb, and golly, who was the other guy?
Yeah,
some really good dude, who's still in the league, I think. And so, they were loaded. They've been loaded.
DeAndre Swift.
Yes, he's still playing in the league, right?
Yeah, he is.
Sure.
Yeah,
yeah. So. Right. And they were all at different points in their career. So I know for Swift continued to play. I think he was a freshman in that game. But anyway, yes, you're exactly right. They got ETN, 63 carries, 335 yards, 5.3 yards a carry, only 4 touchdowns. Good numbers, not great.
This is more of a passing team, though, which is crazy to think about that under Kirby Smart. But no, I think their best way to beat teams is by spreading it out and throwing the football. Which, again, it's hard to even, consider that. But, that's how they got back in the Alabama game.
But they don't have the same talent level at receiver that Texas, Ohio State, Alabama have at receiver, I don't think. Do they?
No. Even Oregon, they don't have that type of level of guys. No. But I will say I was impressed watching that Alabama game with their guys. The Dylan Bell kid was really good. He's been good for them. So,
but 2 touchdowns on the season, though. I
agree.
Numbers that don't jump off the page for what you'd expect from a Georgia team. Now the production does seem pretty spread out. So
that's what I was just gonna say. You took that out of my mouth. The hard thing about them is they have a bunch of guys who are capable. They don't have any real stars, but you have to account for all of them because one of them. If one of them gets hot, they can beat you.
Okay, back to the defense. Are they big bad Georgia D, or are they having what may be considered a slightly off year as far as their defense performance goes?
Yeah, with them, it always historically, at least under Kirby Smart, starts in the trenches, right? They always have those really big and really athletic defensive linemen, the Jordan Davis type of guys. Trevon Walker, who was the number 1 pick in the draft a few years ago. Those type of guys, I don't see anybody like that for them right now. So they don't have, a Tavondre Sweat type, Byron Murphy type guy up front right now. But the thing about it is in the back seven, they're really sound at linebacker. And of course, with Kirby, you also he's a former safety. They always have good secondary play. Guys are usually covered up. Well, I don't know what's been happening this year, especially in the Alabama game. Typically speaking, they always have really good safeties more than anything. They've had good corners too, but their safeties are generally the strongest part of their secondary.
If I'm a Georgia fan, am I concerned though that my 2 leading tacklers are defensive backs?
I would.
Is that a weird?
We've had that before. We've had that before, and unless you've got,
Oklahoma's had that before. And
if that guy's Roy Williams for OU, that's one thing. Michael Griffin was our leading tackle one year. It's like, okay, well, Michael Griffin's a stud, but you'd still prefer a linebacker to be your leading tackle.
Yeah, we've had Stephen Parker be the leading tackle.
Yeah, you don't want that. That's not what you.
That's not good. And so I just their leading tackler is defensive back Starks. I don't have his first name.
He's a really good player, Malachi.
32 total tackles, though, and an interception. Jackson, their other DB, 25 solo, 6 assisted, 31 tackles, and an interception. And then their best linebacker looks like it's Allen with 16 tackles, 16 solo, 11 assists, 27 total tackles. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I mean, there's no, N'Kobe Dean
Nobody just
type
standing out. There's
like
no,
that.
there's not even a Stutzman or even a Billy Bowman on this defense, right? Nobody that, and you got to be kind of hardcore to know who their defensive players are this year.
Yeah, I mean, there's no like N'Kobe Dean type or someone like that who's going to have 150 tackles. Roquan Smith, who you guys had to face, then nobody like that. But think about Georgia too, though, is they play really sound. It's typically their sound defense, right? A lot of times there's not a standout guy, someone who's going to have 15 sacks or anything like that. They just play their scheme well, and they get their rush by sending, kind of they blitz a lot, but it's not like chaotic. Like I was mentioning last week, when you play against Oklahoma, you got blitzes coming from everywhere, from the secondary. You're overloading. You're trying to shoot gaps to get upfield just to kind of cause chaos. They're not really like that. They kind of play more of a base, but they base it on having really good talent and executing their assignments well.
And try to say, this is exactly what we're going to do. Now try to beat us.
Correct. We have better players doing it than you do, which they do for the most part. And we're going to play really sound assignment-based defense, and we're going to try to suffocate you that way.
Look, you ended up pulling away from Oklahoma offensively, but as we talked about, Quinn did not have his best game of the year. He did not reek of efficiency. He was sub 200 yards passing. I thought Wisner had a good game. I think he 113 against OU.
Yes,
but not just
18 carries, something like that.
But not jaw-dropping numbers by any means. But listen, you didn't have to have them, like you said. You didn't have to have them. You throttled back, especially in the fourth quarter. All those things. At the same time, you gave Texas a C+ grade in their blowout win of Oklahoma. C+ doesn't beat Georgia.
No.
What do you need to see different from Texas this week?
Well, I just need to see a more efficient offensive performance, especially from the quarterback position. My thing with Quinn, I really think it was two things. He was jittery, right? Maybe just amped about the matchup, and his mechanics. He regressed mechanically. He went back to some of the stuff that we saw really heavily in 2022, his first year as a starter. We saw some of it last year. It got better, but he at times would drift back to that. And we saw it all game. And it wasn't just in the first quarter, it was the whole game. So I don't know. Maybe is he still 100%? I'm not sure. I haven't heard anything otherwise. But his mechanics, that's my thing with him. I think it was the mechanics more than anything else. I think if he fixes those, I think he'll be fine against Georgia. I really do.
Okay, so we talked about going to the Oklahoma game. If Quinn was going to be on any kind of leash, the argument I made is as long as the game is close and there's really no fear of losing the game, they're going to play Quinn the whole game. Do you think that theory still holds with Georgia? Is there any chance we see Arch in meaningful minutes against Georgia?
I don't think so. I mean, it'll have to take, like I said last week, it will have to take Quinn looking so bad. Because while he didn't look great, even the interception, that was just an over. There wasn't a bad read. The guy was wide open in the middle of the zone. He just didn't set his feet and gunned it over his head and just kind of fell right in front of where Billy Bowman was standing. I didn't see any bad reads from him. If I see bad reads and those kind of turnovers, then I could see them potentially making a move if it looks that bad. But even that performance like he had against OU would not be enough, in my opinion, for him to get pulled.
Texas is at this point a 4-point favorite. We'll come back to the picks at the end of the episode when we make the rest of our picks for week 8. But right now, Texas is a 4-point favorite. Over-under is 56. Let's move to Norman, Oklahoma. Kevin, I feel like the athletic department is trying to distract the fans from the utterly abysmal offensive performance in the Cotton Bowl last week by declaring this game a whiteout. Not a fan of this, Kevin. Not a fan of the whiteout. Not a fan of really any kind of gimmicky thing right now. Anything I see coming out of Oklahoma that doesn't acknowledge the fact that our offense sucks just makes me pissed off. You know what I mean? Like I love Brent Venables. I still think he's the guy, although, he's starting to get it. I guess when you start seeing statistics like 1-8 against top 25 teams, you start going, oh.
Wait, what? That's a real stat?
I think Oklahoma's 1-8 against top 25 teams. And the only win is
Red River Shootout
against you guys last year. And it makes sense, right? We lost to Oklahoma State 2 years in a row. So there's two. Kansas was a top 25 team. That was our record was so weak. Our schedule was so weak last year that we didn't play a lot of top 25 teams. Arizona was in the top 25. That was a loss. Prior to that, it would have been Florida State, Texas, whoever else. So yeah, I think that statistic makes sense. Tennessee this year. So it's when you start seeing that, it comes into question.
And it's year 3 too. I mean, this is we're past.
Well,
you're seeing things you shouldn't see in a year 3.
So here's the deal. In year 3, you bring up a good point, but in year 3, on the field, eye test, and any other measurement you want to use, you can see Brent Venables' coaching influence on the defense.
Correct.
That is a very sound side of the ball. And it is encouraging that when asked to do what he does best, he has delivered. Okay? Now, again, are we the 85 Bears? Are we, I don't even know, a really good Georgia? I don't know.
No, but you play at the very least, you play good defense.
We play good defense. We're a good defensive team.
Dumb it down, you play good defense.
With stars on the team, right? With people that you can recruit off of, right? You can recruit off of a Billy Bowman. You can recruit off of Danny Stutzman. You can recruit off of these guys, right? So, and there doesn't seem to be a slowdown in recruiting. So from a talent perspective on development, talent, scheme, on-field success, on the defensive side of the ball, it's been nothing but an upward trend, and that's positive. On the offensive side of the ball, it's the exact opposite. Everything I just said defensively is the exact opposite offensively. And here's the thing. My God, we weren't that bad last year. We were a top 10 offense last year.
You were top 10 in the country last year. You just had some situational stuff last year.
We had some dumb stuff. We had dumb stuff against Kansas, weird stuff against Oklahoma State, weird stuff at other points in games. But just from a pure production, it's just not even close, right? It's just not even close. The biggest thing for me, and you brought it up last episode, is if you want to isolate like a micro issue within the offense that should really have you scratching your head, it's the running back position. And the reason I say that, and I think the reason you brought it up, is minus one game for Taylor Tatum against Auburn, we've had our full complement of running backs the entire season, and they're not hurt. And there is no production there, like none. And that's what's really alarming. And you've seen zero development. And, I've been on Javonte Barnes' case all year. I don't want to just keep kicking that dog down But at the same time, it's like, I don't know. So anyway, very frustrated offensively. You start seeing those stats, though, and you're like, what's going on? He's elected to, at least as of Wednesday, October 16th, prior to the South Carolina game, he is not going to make any changes to the coaching staff. Kevin, if we fail to score a touchdown offensively against South Carolina, which is a very real possibility, can he afford not to fire Seth Littrell?
Man, the pressure has to be building, right? It has to be building. I'm just worried about, does he feel he's going to lose something or someone? This thing can get away from him, right? And it's just scary, man. Listen, hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just curious, because you have to look at these things from all angles, right? I'm just curious if he's concerned about some other backlash. Does he just want to wait till after the season? I don't know, man. This feels very familiar as a Texas fan. We went through a decade of this, having, weird hires that just didn't work out. And then do you fire these coaches? And you only get one mulligan, really, when it comes to staff changes when you're in year 3. I've seen it with Herman and with Charlie Strong.
I guess my retort back is in the form of a question. What are you worried about specifically with Seth Littrell? He didn't recruit any of these players. Okay. There's no offensive recruit, at least that's currently committed, that I think is Seth Littrell dependent. Now, I'm sure somebody out there says, well, this guy has been, okay, whatever. But there's nobody out there that's like, who's come out openly and said, I'm only staying if Seth Littrell stays. That's not been the case. You can't tell me that Jackson Arnold's family is happy with Seth Littrell. You can't tell me Michael Hawkins' family is happy with Seth Littrell. You can't tell me Taylor Tatum's family is happy with Seth Littrell. So I guess my question back to you is, who are we worried about pissing off? Now, he comes from a line of coaches that don't typically make in-season changes. A la Bob Stoops was very consistent throughout the year. Snyder was consistent. Dabo was consistent. But this is historically bad, Kevin. We are talking like sub 130 ranking nationwide. It's awful. It's beyond bad.
Yeah.
And
who would call the plays? Just if you were to make a change. I'm just curious. I don't know if you've heard anything.
Well, you have a co-offensive coordinator. So unless he feels like they're both responsible, I assume Joe John has called plays in the past. Again, you rise to the rank of co-offensive coordinator. You are getting paid north of $1 million a year with everything, incentives and everything. So I find it hard that we can't give it a shot. Again, from an offensive touchdown perspective, it's been abysmal. So I don't know what really gets worse than a 3-point showing against Texas. You have very experienced coaches on staff. Bill Beedenbow is a very experienced coach. Does he call plays? I don't know. DeMarco Murray, at this point in his career, very experienced coach. Does he call plays? I don't know.
No. I mean,
you're saying no.
Coaching. I mean, where has he coached besides
Arizona? Arizona under Sumlin.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't calling plays there, so I don't know where he would have anywhere else. So
I mean, Joe John was under
John Finley. Honestly, where was he?
Was he at Missouri under Heupel? Was Heupel his offensive?
Okay, maybe so. Yeah, I don't think he's ever called plays before.
Yeah, here's the problem though. Seth Littrell has called plays, and this is what we get.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem is, Kevin, it's gotten to the point where we're very much in the 2010s Texas 2010s Texas space, right? And the fact that we're now talking about, are we going to see both quarterbacks?
Yeah, I'm telling you, this feels all too familiar, and it sucks, man. It sucks.
Well, 2 quarterbacks. I mean, when people talk about 2 quarterbacks, that's just 2 different dudes not playing very well.
Yeah. And my thing is the management of this entire situation, right? Do you think, maybe it's in hindsight, but did he pull the plug on Jackson Arnold too quick? Wow.
No.
Even if listen, he should have been benched in the Tennessee game. I get that. Right. But I mean, did he make Hawkins a starter right afterwards, or was it after a week of practice? I'm just curious what all went into that, because what's worrying is you could end up losing both of these dudes. That'd be catastrophic to lose, even if one of them doesn't transfer, but just if you lose them from a mental or confidence standpoint, it would be catastrophic for you guys.
That is an incredibly real issue, because I made the statement after the Texas game in the last episode. I'm worried what happened to Jackson Arnold might be happening to Michael Hawkins from a confidence, from a decision making, just trying to press, trying to make things happen with his feet that he doesn't need to make happen. There's just a lot of things going on there that are very similar to what was happening to Jackson Arnold. Now, we haven't seen the turnovers, albeit he did have a turnover against Texas, but we haven't seen the turnovers to that extent.
Yeah.
But you feel like, it's going to sound terrible, but you feel like they're coming. You feel like that's the next thing on the list.
Yeah.
Is to start to see really bad turnovers.
So much, yeah. He seemed scared to let it rip. And Jackson Arnold was the same way.
Yes.
I mean, even you look at the game against Arizona, and I know those interceptions were bad, but at least he was letting it rip and hitting guys down the field. I haven't even seen. I know you're down a bunch of receivers, but you have guys who can run. Right? You have fast receivers. The Kearney and Reagans, and of course Brennan Thompson, or at least they're fast guys. One semi-deep shot against Texas and never even tried.
Look, I know I brought up the Jacoby Johnson. I really thought he was going to play against Texas.
He had 3 snaps on offense, and he was out there at corner.
He was out there at corner. He was out there on all the special teams. He looked good at corner too. Him and Eli Bowen.
Eli Bowen's your best corner, by the way.
Yeah,
that guy's close. Really good. And I did not think
he was only a 3-star. He was a 3-star.
Texas was recruiting him a bit. I don't know how hard they press, but he's good. I mean, he is your best corner, at least out of the guys you have available right now. He is your best guy. He was really good against Texas.
Yeah, well,
never would have thought that he would be making an impact this soon, especially being a 5'9" guy.
But this is what I'm talking about. You're seeing development on the defensive side of the ball. You're seeing improved scheme on the defensive side of the ball. You're seeing players play with confidence, play loose. Now, I think you're starting to see some heads being hung. I think you're starting to see major frustration. I think you're starting to see a attitude of, this is like, what the hell else can we do besides put you in position to go score, and you don't do it? So that's becoming a real deal. There's a lot of things that are happening. And I don't know. Okay, as far as this game goes, first of all, I hate the whiteout. Number 2, it's 11:45 on the SEC network. This is what you get when you suck.
In all fairness, we've been on the SEC network.
Yeah, against who, though? It wasn't an SEC game.
Mississippi State.
Oh, was it? Okay, that's fine. But, man, dude, they're coming off a 27-25 near win to Bama last week in Alabama, in Tuscaloosa, against a team that had just lost to Vanderbilt. You would have thought would have been playing with their hair on fire and had very legitimate chances to win the game. Their quarterback, Lenora Sellers, is fine, I guess. Not great. 793 yards, 62% completion, 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 20 sacks. The guy has 20 sacks. For a team that's good at sacking the quarterback, I hope we can take advantage of that.
Yeah, you guys have to be excited about that.
But you tell me that the problem for Oklahoma is the 2 edge players for South Carolina. How good are they in relation to other edge players in the SEC?
I don't know if a team in the SEC has this combination of edge guys. Seriously.
Who's the true freshman?
That's Dylan Stewart. He's out of the D.C. area. He's a 5-star kid who went to South Carolina. He has 3.5 sacks already. And, of course, on the other side, Kyle Kennard with 7.5 sacks already. 11.5 tackles for loss already.
Yeah. And 2 forced fumbles.
Correct. So when you have these 2 guys coming off the edge, it's like, who do you double team here? And for an offensive line that's been struggling, it's just not what you want to see coming into your stadium, especially, with the fact that your offense is already kind of struggling. You have an inexperienced quarterback. I'm not sure what the game plan for OU is going to be offensively, but it needs to be to get the ball out quickly and just try to establish some sort of run game, because you don't want to be in 3rd and long with those 2 guys out there, because they can get after even good tackles. I think they can get after. I mean, they sacked Milroe 4 times. He holds on to the ball too long.
Kevin, if we get 3rd and long, it doesn't matter who's rushing. Okay, we're screwed. Like, let's just face it. Anything over 4 yards, it's like there's no chance we're picking this up. That's number 1. Number 2, I think we should run the damn ball. And the reason I say that is because we're not going to be able to block these guys
Correct.
in a typical pass pro lineup, and they know we're passing type situation. So the way you neutralize this type of talent is you have to run straight at it, right? You got to turn them into tacklers and turn them into pursuit, and not just coming off the edge with their hair on fire. So that's what I would like to see, and I'd like to see it with Taylor Tatum, who is averaging over 5 yards a carry. I don't even know what the number is, but it's way better than anything else we have. Line up and let's run the ball. Now, here's part of the problem. Our tight ends can't block. Bauer Sharp. Our offensive line is struggling, but they were better in pass pro. But it's South Carolina. I know these two edges are really, really good, but their interior is not like top of the crop for the SEC. I just want to see us line up and run the ball because we're not passing the ball well. We're not doing anything well. So let's try to be good at something. And I just really hope it's trying to control the clock and run the ball.
Yeah, you have to run the ball and you just can't drop back with those two guys out there. You've been struggling. I mean,
we can't drop back anyway.
Correct. But if you're, if it's 3rd and 14, I mean, I might still consider this is a game though, because we knew against Texas that the defense, as good as it is, was not going to be able to hold Texas down the entire game. It just was not going to happen. South Carolina's different.
Yeah, they don't have. It could be an Auburn-like game. It could be an Auburn-like game. Yeah,
exactly. So you have a chance by just playing defense. It's fine to go 3-and-out and punt.
Well, right? I read a South Carolina article. Get ready for this podcast. They said the number one thing is don't let their defense score. Don't let OU's defense score. That's their biggest concern is letting OU's defense score. They have zero concern about OU's offense scoring. Like it's just not even. Yeah, it's not even on their radar.
Good defense, and they locked Alabama down after that first drive. They did a really good job. So, and again, the opportunistic rush just can lead to obviously strip sacks. It can lead to rush throws, which can lead to interceptions.
Over under is 41. We don't usually pick that, but would you take the under?
Yes.
That's a low number, dude.
It is a low number.
We keep talking about Iowa games and stuff. That's an Iowa-like number from last year.
What was your Auburn? Was it 21-10? Was that your Auburn score? Or was it 21-17? I forget that.
What it ended up being?
Yeah, the final score against Auburn.
It was like 23-21.
27-21, actually.
Yeah.
That's a very low. That's a low number. But again, we're talking about a really good defense. And then, like I said, the offense pro, you continue to really regress. And that's an ability for your defense to really get after Lenore Sellers and force the turnovers. They get sacked.
20 sacks. 20 sacks.
Yes, and
you have to take advantage.
Your guys knock the ball out. They knock the ball out too.
We'll come back. We're going to come back and pick it. OU's a 2.5-point favorite, which I don't even know.
It's only because you're a Norman, I think.
Yeah, in a whiteout, man. That whiteout's intimidating. All right, Kevin, let's thank our title sponsor, Brown O'Haver, public insurance adjusting firm, working for the insured, not the insurance company. This past week, we have signed up 6 new clients. 3 had fires, 1 in the Tulsa area, 2 in the Oklahoma City metro. It's starting to be, it's not fire season yet, but when it starts getting colder and stuff, weird stuff happens. So if you have a fire and you need help, you want to call Brown O'Haver, 405-735-5510. Even if you don't think you need help, 405-735-5510. We can give advice, point you in the right direction. Make sure the first steps you take set you up for a good claims process. That is the key to a successful claim management is the first decisions you make. And sometimes that's not making a decision at all. So call Brown O'Haver if you have a fire, 405-735-5510. Kevin, still experiencing big hailstorm impacts. I know you were on a couple roofs this morning. What else can your roofing company do for us?
Yeah, if you are affected at all by this hailstorm, if you know hail hit your house, even if you don't see leaks or anything, give your friends at Pioneer Roofing a call. We can go out, give you a free inspection, let you know, give you the peace of mind and knowing if you have damage to your roof, or if you don't have damage to your roof. And if you do have damage, we can kind of help you, guide you through that claims process, teach you how to go from there. Okay, give us a call, 549-2712.
All right, dude. Week 8, pretty good week. It's not as good as last week's slate, but when you add Georgia and Texas on top of it, it's pretty freaking good. Starting on Friday night, Oregon coming off the big win goes to Purdue. Purdue just fired Graham Harrell as their offensive coordinator. Is that right?
I hadn't heard that, but the offense it's been bad, man. It's been bad.
Yeah,
Hudson Card, former Texas quarterback, has just really been struggling this year.
Hudson Card is still a quarterback. He's still a college quarterback.
Yeah, he's at Purdue.
Is this a weird year? Is this like a 7-year?
No. I think this might be year 4, maybe 5 I think it's year 5.
All right. Well, Oregon's a 27-point favorite. Oklahoma State is at undefeated BYU Friday night. 9.5-point favorite for the Cougars. I worry about these Friday night games. If I was as an OU fan, I would hate to be playing these Friday night games. I feel like weird stuff happens. And even if it doesn't happen, you think it's going to happen. So if I'm at BYU, I'm a little, Oklahoma State is wounded and they kind of have nothing left to play for. And so you kind of feel like they could just come out and is your hair up for this game a little bit if you're a BYU fan? Like a little nervous?
A little bit.
Or you're saying Oklahoma State's quit?
It's not looking good. They're not running it, and they're not stopping the run.
Okay.
I mean, they're the worst. Their run defense is the worst in the conference. And it's one of the worst in the country. I think they're 129. They're allowing 235 rushing yards a game. What are we talking about here? And then they can't run it either. 3.8 yards for Ollie Gordon. They're 124th in rushing offense. Oklahoma, Mike Gundy coach team is 124th in rushing offense.
Are they ahead of Oklahoma's rushing offense?
That I don't know.
I think we might actually be 121st. Anyway, we might pick that. Keep an eye on that one because that is undefeated BYU, has Big 12 implications. Moving to Saturday, one that you're interested in, Nebraska, 5-1 Nebraska at 6-0, 16th ranked Indiana. Indiana, the Hoosiers, 6.5-point favorites.
This offense, man, has looked really good for them. Their coach, they got the coach who was at James Madison.
Yeah.
Right? Did a really good job there. And yeah, he's got people really believing in Indiana football, which is cool to see. And they look like a serious team. I'm looking forward to this because I think we all understand what Matt Rule is about, and he's really getting that thing going at Nebraska. They've got the young quarterback, Raiola, who's doing a good job for them. I want to see. This is an intriguing matchup for me. I'm going to be keeping an eye on this. There's some other good games on Saturday, but I'll be tuned into this one for sure.
Another 6-0 team at Louisville, Miami at Louisville. Miami is a 5-point favorite. We've talked about is Miami real, and either they're really lucky or really good. You think both? Does Louisville derail the Miami Hurricanes?
We'll see. I mean, as good as Miami's been, I think they're beatable if they don't show up right. They were down big against Cal. They were able to come back and win that game on the road. But they got some things that they need to clean up on defensively and offensively. Cam Ward, as good as he is, he can be a little bit loose with the football in his decision-making. So they'll have to play better than they did against Cal to escape Louisville with the win.
Is this as high as Miami's been ranked in a really long time at 6?
It's the longest that I can remember.
Yeah, they've been ranked in the top 10, I know, but then they've usually laid an egg very soon thereafter. So to be this late in the season, it's something to keep an eye on down there in Miami for sure. East Carolina is at undefeated Army. I'm Team Army, Team Navy. Army's a 15.5-point favorite. Still on a collision course. They've both got to get through Notre Dame. Auburn at Missouri. Missouri still 19th ranked. Missouri is a 4.5-point favorite hosting Auburn. I don't think either one of these teams is very good.
Neither do I. I mean, Missouri bounced back against UMass, but it's UMass on the road.
Yeah.
Which we talked about. Why the heck are you even playing on the road in UMass? But yeah, they're going to have to really turn it up to really start impressing people, because so far what we saw from them this year just hasn't looked right.
No, no. Virginia at Clemson. Clemson only lost to Georgia, 21-point favorite.
That offense is rolling, man.
It really is.
I mean, he looks great. He looks like the 5-star guy coming out of Austin Westlake. He looks great.
Do you think what was this light switch? Did Dabo take the handcuffs off Garrett Riley? Did Kate Klubnik have some development? Like, what do you think happened?
I don't know.
Or is happening?
It seems like to me they just have opened up the offense more, and they're running that true air raid, Riley offense. That's what this looks like since the Georgia game, especially over the last few. It's just getting better and better by the week.
I mean, we've seen this over the years, especially in the Big 12. You don't have to have the greatest quarterback in the world to have a good air raid offense, right? Like, look at all those Texas Tech quarterbacks. Look at, Hawaii quarterbacks and all this. You can put some points up. And sometimes you just got to let them do it. And it looks like maybe Dabo's said, screw it. Go ahead and run
let's go. I mean, you got a 5-star quarterback, and then he's spoiled because he's had mostly 5-star quarterbacks. But when you got a guy like that who can run the offense and is a good athlete too, let it go. Unlock it. Let it go.
Well, and have an identity. And if the identity's air raid, again, it's the opposite of what Oklahoma's going through, right? Where we have no idea what we are. Like zero idea what we are.
Yeah, if you watch OU, it's just I don't know what you guys are even trying.
Are we trying to run the ball? Are we trying to, go be an air raid team. Go get really good at doing something. Anyway, I'm not a Clemson fan necessarily, but they bounced back nicely, so it's kind of something to keep an eye on. Another huge game in the SEC. Alabama is at Tennessee. Kalen DeBoer says that Tennessee Neyland Stadium is not that loud. I don't know who he's trying to rile up. His team has not played well in their last 2 SEC games, going 1-1 with a close call against South Carolina. I don't know why you're poking the Tennessee Bear. I'm not saying Tennessee's that. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Why?
He said he played at Autzen Stadium and they're louder or something like that. I don't know.
That's probably true.
But you don't see it.
You don't have to say that. You say, our guys have played at loud places before. They'll be ready to go.
Alabama is Alabama still the better team here? Do we know that for sure?
I don't know. I do know this though. That Tennessee offense is not right. Nico in this passing game. Again, you guys kind of wrote the blueprint for stopping this offense.
Last 3 games are averaging 18 points a game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that 360
not expected.
Yeah. Listen, in the Big 12, Iowa State unlocked that offense really against you guys in 2017. Remember Iowa State beat you guys that year?
Yep.
3 safeties back there.
Oh, and 3 on the offense and 3 on the defensive line. They ran a 3.
Yeah, 3. Yeah.
3 like a 3-3-5, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And it was safeties, and you're like, why can't you run against this? I don't understand why you can't run against this.
Because they have a safety that's kind of in between, and I don't think anybody in the SEC runs that. So you guys, Brent put it out there, and he ran some of that against Texas last year too, and it kind of gave us some trouble at the beginning of the game. Ran it against Heupel's offense, and ever since then, everybody else is running it too. Yep. Because so far, Heupel hasn't figured it out yet. So I wouldn't be surprised if Alabama does the same thing, and Nico just hasn't looked right. He's holding on to the ball too long. No one's open deep. They're going to have to hope that they can run the ball well. Sampson's been really good this year, but 27 for 112 in his last game, it's okay.
Yeah.
Right? So they're going to have to really run the ball well in order to beat Alabama, because as weird as Alabama's look, we know that they can score points.
We're picking that game. Tennessee is a 3-point home dog. Notre Dame's at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's a 12-point dog. Charlotte at Navy, 25. What do you think about that game?
I mean, Navy's look great. I think Navy will be all over Charlotte. I don't think they'll be looking ahead to Notre Dame. They've got Notre Dame next week. Even if they are looking ahead, I mean, I think they can handle their business against Charlotte.
For those watching the YouTube video, yes, I just sneezed like a crazy person. I did mute it in time, but it was coming. It was coming. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I made it 54 minutes. Listen, I want Navy to keep winning. We know that. They're going to blow Charlotte out. I would love to pick this game because I'd take Navy in the points. Colorado and Arizona. Colorado bounces back?
I think so. I think that loss, it was a really competitive football game. Kansas State just made more plays in the end. But yeah, I think it'll be good.
Thoughts about Travis Hunter's comments regarding Ashton Janty?
Didn't hear them.
He's like, of course he has more yards. He's getting the ball 30 times a game. Imagine if I got 30 passes a game, what I could do.
I have no problem with that.
Dude, you're a Travis Hunter apologist, Kevin. You love Travis Hunter.
I do love Travis Hunter, man. I was on the train since before he committed to Jackson State. Come on, but I love Ashton Janty, but I mean, if you give him 30 receptions, I don't think that's taking away anything from Janty. I love Janty too, but I think he wants to win the Heisman.
I got to tell you, I just kind of like the banter. I like that we get to hear from these players more and more.
Yeah, be honest.
It really doesn't bother me.
Yeah, now, it's not like he said, "Oh yeah, he sucks" or "He's overrated" or whatever. So
yeah, it doesn't really bother. USC at Maryland. Neither of these teams are ranked.
No,
but I still had to throw them out there because it's USC.
Well, that road trip, that's a long road trip, man. That from Los Angeles to Maryland, that is a long road trip in college football.
What's a long road trip in the NFL?
Yeah.
Teams that have to go east typically struggle. Now, they're usually struggle in the early game. This looks like it'll be an afternoon game. Maryland's only a 7.5-point dog. I don't know anything about Maryland. Is there any chance Maryland upsets USC and the wheels completely fall off?
Yes, there is a chance. Because it'd be a bigger spread if it wasn't.
I think so too. That's what's so weird about it.
And they do have a competent coach in Mike Locksley.
Oh, is that who the coach is?
Yeah. Former Bama offensive coordinator.
Look, there's a good chance OU gets beat this weekend. And so as long as USC keeps losing, I'll at least have some buffer to that. But anyway, A&M's at Mississippi State. A&M's at 15.5 points. They should roll. LSU at Arkansas. LSU, number 8 in the country, lost to the aforementioned USC. Having to go to Arkansas. Arkansas is only a 2.5-point dog. Arkansas is a weird team in that they can put up points, and then they can stop putting up points, and then they can stop people, and then they can let people run through them. They're so inconsistent. Can they get their together long enough to beat the number 8 team in the country?
Oh, they absolutely can, because the way you described Arkansas is the same thing as LSU. They're the same way. You don't know what you're going to get from them from one week to the next, especially on defense. And it is really hard to go and play at Arkansas at night. Texas plays there. I'm concerned about that game. I feel better about it being at 11 a.m. as opposed to 6 p.m. But still, that's a tough place to play. They hate LSU. It's a rivalry game. They're going to be up for it. Green should be back and healthy. I'm on upset alert if I'm LSU.
Ball State at Vandy. Vandy's a 25.5-point favorite. This has got to be weird space. This has got to be like a weird headspace for Vandy to be just like that big a favorite, regardless of who they're playing. But if Vandy wins, are they in the top 25 next week? Because they're not in the top 25 now.
I don't know. Ball State sucks, but they're close, man. I'm not looking.
If they win, they're going to be 5. Kevin, if they win, they're going to be 5-2.
They'll at least garner some consideration.
A win against what? I mean, what happens if Bama beats Tennessee? If Bama beats Tennessee and they win, they're going to be 5-2 with a win against second place in the SEC. Bama.
Either way, man. Ranked or not, I'm not looking forward to Texas playing there next week.
No, because
games against Oklahoma and Georgia.
Yeah, because you had to, regardless of whatever happened in the game, you had to get up, and now you have to get up for Georgia. UCF at Iowa State. Iowa State's a 14-point favorite, looking to stay undefeated in the Big 12 and overall. KSU at West Virginia. West Virginia is a 3.5-point home dog. Kentucky at Florida. It's a 1-point line. This is a chance for Napier to maybe sneak a win in. They've been close.
They
Some
should
might
have beat
say
Tennessee last week.
I was about to say some might say they should have beat Tennessee. So we'll see. And then finally, Michigan at Illinois. You said this is one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I mean, two ranked team. I like Illinois, the way they've been playing. I like their quarterback, Luke Altmaier. In Michigan, we know what they're about, right? They don't really have any consistency at the quarterback position. Can they run the ball effectively against Illinois? That's the only formula they have to win the game. If you can shut down their run game, you can beat them. So I'm curious to see who comes out on top of that one.
Okay, so we're going to pick Bama and Tennessee. We're going to pick LSU and Arkansas. Of course, we're going to pick Texas, Georgia, OU, South Carolina. That leaves, I'm going to let you make the decision. That leaves Oklahoma State, BYU, Nebraska, Indiana, Miami, Louisville. Other games that we might pick. Michigan and Illinois. Probably those three, right? Am I missing one?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, those are the ones.
That's it. Which one do you like?
Let's do the Nebraska, Illinois one. That one's just really interesting.
Nebraska, Indiana?
Or Indiana, excuse me. Yeah, Nebraska, Indiana.
Okay. All right. Let's start with Bama, Tennessee.
I like Alabama.
Tennessee to cover the 3?
Yes. I just don't like what I've seen out of Tennessee's off. Now, I do think it's going to click at some point. And I don't love the way that Alabama's defense has been playing. I just think that, this is a opportunity for a bounce back for Alabama. I just want to see them get the ball in the hands of their playmakers and see if they can make plays against Tennessee's defense, which is difficult to do. But I'm going to roll with Alabama here. I don't feel great about it, for the record.
I want to pick Tennessee so bad. I think that Kalen DeBoer is struggling right now. I think that he's starting to realize, like, reality is setting in, what it's like to be the coach at Alabama versus anywhere else in the world. Yeah, including the NFL. Like, so I think that I want to pick Tennessee, but man, they just have looked like crap. And if they really can't turn on the offensive fireworks like they have it the last 3 weeks, they can't score enough. I mean, I'm not sure they can get the 27 that South Carolina had last week. And that's crazy to say. I'm gonna stick with you and go with Bama. All right. LSU, Arkansas, 2.5-point dog. I'm gonna take Arkansas to cover. I could see LSU winning 17-16 because I think like you said, you have two very spastic teams. But I'm kind of pulling for the upset here, Arkansas.
Yeah, I've got Arkansas too.
Do you really?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, and I like what LSU did. I like the fight they showed, but they were so sloppy and really fortunate to almost steal a win against Ole Miss. I thought Ole Miss was better overall and made a lot of self-inflicted mistakes that cost them that game. I like Arkansas at home. That place is just ridiculous at night.
Okay, this is the game you wanted to pick. 5-1 Nebraska versus 6-0 Indiana. In Bloomington, 6.5-point favorite for the Hoosiers.
First of all, who would have thought that even at the beginning of the season that Indiana would be a 6.5-point favorite against Nebraska? That's wild.
Especially a 5-1 Nebraska. I mean, yes. I guess you could have made a hypothetical that Nebraska was going to be 3-3, and then you could maybe justify it. But a 5-1 Nebraska, you're thinking, well, they're going to be a 6.5-point dog, not a 6.5-point favorite.
I like Indiana here.
Wow. Okay. I do not trust Indiana just because I know
it's all new. It's new. It's all new.
I'm not bought in yet. I'm going to go with Matt Rule in Nebraska to win by a touchdown, 24-17. Okay. Let's leave Texas, Georgia to the end because that's the game. So we got Oklahoma, South Carolina, 2.5-point favorite. I have no idea. I thought about this
going. Yeah, you can see this going a few different ways here, and be realistically.
I mean, if I'm going to be realistic, I have to say OU gets beat. I can't see a scenario where they outscore anyone on their schedule except for Maine.
Yeah.
Kevin, I don't know where the offensive production is going to come from. I thought, look, I picked OU to beat Texas. We all do. But I mean, I'm supposed that's what we do here.
Yeah, that's what it is. Doesn't matter how.
But I mean, I didn't think we were. I mean, it's just after seeing what we've done, I don't know where the offensive production is going to come from. South Carolina has a very stout defense. And if we don't score a defensive touchdown, we're not going to win this game.
And what scares me is their ability to force turnovers defensively as well. You guys have protected the football pretty well, right? You got stripped again, by Anthony Hill and then, the Tatum fumble before the Texas game. But these guys, and having two dynamic edge rushers is what makes this really scary, right? Texas has Colin Simmons. It's like they have two Colin Simmons out there. That's what's nervy for Oklahoma, and it's hard, man. So
I'm taking South Carolina, and I'm taking the under.
I'm rolling with you on that too, man.
Unbelievable! I cannot believe this. God, I don't even know what the hell's happening. Okay, Texas, Georgia, game of the week, potentially the game of the year, depending on how it plays out. Again, it's gone up against some really good ones: Bama, Georgia, Oregon, Ohio State. Other big Titanic matchups that we've had. Texas, Michigan, up until this point that was a great game. The world is upside down, Kevin. Right is left, up is down, black is white, day is night. And I picked the University of Texas to cover the 4 points.
You know what, man? I don't know if 3 years ago, really any point in the last, well, especially we'll go the last 3 to 5 years. I didn't think I would be saying this. I think that the University of Texas has a better football team than the University of Georgia. I just do. I know. I think Texas is going to beat Georgia, and I think they're going to cover. I think we just have more. We're a more balanced and complete football team than Georgia is right now, which is crazy to say, but I believe it to be true.
I am picking Texas to cover. There is a very real scenario where they get exposed because they truly haven't played anybody. Like that could be a narrative that we discuss on Sunday.
And even if they haven't played anybody, they haven't played anybody to Georgia's level. That's for sure.
Yeah. And so we could have the conversation Sunday when we do the recap where it's like, well, I guess they hadn't played anybody. But the people they have played, it has not even been like a question. I think they have to, we said this, I think they have to be more efficient on offense. I think they need to get a little bit more out of their running game, especially than they did against Oklahoma. But Georgia is making games really weird. That Kentucky game was weird. Obviously, the way they opened against Alabama. Honestly, the first half against Alabama is probably my key indicator for this pick because I think about what Sark can scheme up in a script type situation to open the game.
Correct.
He can look at what Caleb DeBoer did, and just really dial up some serious stuff and then hold on for the rest of the game, if nothing else. Just like the Alabama thing, just get up the lead and then hold on. So it's that Alabama, it's the Kentucky game for Georgia and the Alabama game for Georgia that's making me pick Texas. Yeah. I hope they lose. I hope they get their ass kicked. I don't want there to be undefeated teams left in the SEC. This, even if this was something else. But
you certainly don't want Texas.
No, I sure as
let's be honest about that, right?
That's no joke. I don't want Texas to have any sort of credit.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this though, man. And they're a good team, and I think it'll be a 4-quarter game. But I think we have more ways to win the game than they do.
NFL thoughts real quick. Devontae Adams to the Jets. Does this change anything with the Jets? They're still like 2-4, right?
I mean, it changes a little bit. Their offense. My thing is, I hate their play design and their play calling. They fired their head coach, Robert Saleh.
But he wasn't their offensive coordinator.
He was not. And the thing is, the offensive coordinator was Nathaniel Hackett, who was Aaron Rodgers' guy. He wanted Nathaniel Hackett there as the offensive coordinator. And the offense is horrible. There's no creativity. It's just basic. There's just nothing special about it. He's a legend, but think about it, man. He's almost 41 years old, coming off an Achilles tear. What can you expect from him?
I do think adding Devontae does provide them another weapon and gives Garrett Wilson some cover. But they're not running the ball particularly well with Brees
That's the
Hall.
thing. They got Brees Hall, and they've got the kid Braylon Allen from Wisconsin, really talented running back, former 5-star guy. They're not even running the ball great. So maybe this will unlock something. I don't blame them for doing it. They feel like they have a roster, especially with the defense, that they could be competitive with. So I applaud them for making a move, trying to do something, trying to better the team if it's not working as they hoped it would so far.
To date, the Cowboys have done nothing to better their team.
And we saw this coming. We talked about this in the preseason. I just was not a fan of this roster, and it's very
also
now.
To your point about creative offenses, the Detroit Lions take on the 5-0 Minnesota Vikings this weekend as well, and I don't know why I'm fired up for that. Like, I don't normally get fired up for a regular season NFL game that doesn't involve the Cowboys or Baker, but I am kind of fired up, and I want to see, will Detroit do some of that crazy stuff that they did against Dallas in a more competitive game, or were they literally just messing around against Dallas?
Well, here's the thing. Dan Campbell, he has no fear whatsoever, so he will run trick plays. He'll go for it on 4th down in his own territory, even if it's the analytics say you should punt here. He's like, I'm going to go for it, right? What's the guy? RJ Young said that he's the kind of guy that says hit me on blackjack when he's got 19.
Yeah.
That's how you compare Dan Campbell. So, yeah, I really like the Lions. This division has been crazy. Chicago was in 4th place, and they're 4-2.
Yeah, they might get a wild card if they keep, if it could.
You can have all 4 teams potentially.
I don't know if they're wild card eligible. What are the Packers?
I think they're 4-2 as well. They might be even 5-1. Yeah, right now the Bears are last place at 4-2.
Last thing before we close it up, any preseason Thunder thoughts that you need to get off your chest? You feeling things looking good? We feeling good?
Yeah, I think they're going to be really good this year. I like the additions of Alex Caruso and Hartenstein. I think they're going to be even more multiple defensively because Caruso is one of the best defensive players in the league. So they've got just on ball defensively with Shea, who's a really good defender, underrated. Lou Dort, who's one of the best in the league. Caruso, who's one of the best in the league. Cason Wallace, who's a rookie last year, who's one of the best up-and-coming defensive players in the league. And now Hartenstein helps with the interior defense and the rebounding. That's the only metric that they weren't great at last year was rebounding. But he helps with that a lot and takes some of that physical pressure off of Chet Holmgren.
Does Caruso help? I don't know Caruso's game all that well. Is he the kind of defender that can help against the guy from Dallas?
Luka? Yes.
Yeah. Doncic.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because Dort is really good, but Dort is so physical. He got into foul trouble in every game. So Caruso, it's another guy you can throw on him and get all up in his face, make him uncomfortable. He's so good, he can score anyway, but you just have to make it as difficult on guys like that as possible.
Kevin, great show. Enjoy the Georgia game. It must be nice to be a part of really big games with a legitimate chance to win. I envy you. I envy you your offensive production, and I envy you that golden hat you wore in the last episode. Kevin, have a great afternoon. Boomer!
Hook 'em. Horns up.